I'm Mark Johnston, your host for Your Vote, Your TV's extensive coverage of the 2022 municipal election. We're here in studio going behind the ballot, and today we have the great opportunity to meet your two mayoral candidates for the town of Cobourg, Sitting Mayor John Henderson and Lucas Cleveland. We're delighted to have them with us today, and there'll be a great opportunity to hear from each of them about their platform, their thoughts, visions, and dreams for the great town of Cobourg moving forward in the next 4 years. We do have a few housekeeping items to cover. This is a debate, so we have some rules of engagement, one would say. Before we started taping today, our candidates each drew a number. So we have a number one today to start us off is Lucas Cleveland, followed by Sitting Mayor John Henderson. We'll get that started. Each candidate will have up to 3 minutes to give their opening statement. And then as we move into the question period, each candidate is given 2 minutes to answer, one and then the other, and then a chance for a retort and a bit of open debate from there. And at the end of today's show, we have a 3-minute period, in which case we have a closing statement from both Mayor John Henderson and Lucas Cleveland. At that point, we've contained most of our housekeeping. We're delighted you could be here with us today, and we do encourage you, of course, on October 24th to get out there and exercise your democratic right to vote. Mayor Henderson, thank you for joining us. Lucas Cleveland, thank you for being here.
I'll start. Hello,
Okay.
Cobourg. My name's Lucas Cleveland, and I decided to step up and run for the position of mayor because I'm not really happy with what I see happening in our community, and I believe it's time for a change at the top. When I chose to leave my very successful career in the oil and gas industry, overseeing multi-million-dollar projects involving hundreds of employees in various levels of government agencies, I did so to become a family man and to use my years of experience, problem-solving skills, and diverse skill set to serve the community I chose to live in. I moved here and fell in love with Cobourg, and I wanted to make it the best place to live in Canada. So I opened the beach canteen and for the first time provided beach alternatives, organizing beach bar nights, trying to add some culture to our waterfront, where we employed over 75 young adults over a 3-year contract because that's what the community told me they needed. It was there on the ground, doing the work of serving the community their daily coffee, where I learned the need in this community for a fresh market downtown. I'd never done something like that, but I was willing to give it a try because that's what this community said they needed. You see, I understand how to get things done. I love the process and difficulty of figuring out complex problems. I thrive attempting to do what people say can't be done, and I love a good challenge. So again, I jumped in with both feet because I have a can-do attitude, and because that is what the needed in this community was. I've now spent the last 5 years of my life doing exactly what I told this community I was going to do. I spent the time and effort doing the research, learning, failing forward, organizing, building, marketing, and growing the market to serve this community. It now sits as a thriving business that had the honor of feeding thousands through COVID, through various charitable organizations, that is responsible for putting the food on the table for its 30-plus employees and their families, that ensures all in this community have access to the healthy food through the Northumberland Eats program, and it has single-handedly helped to revitalize a section of the downtown core east of Division. Ladies and gentlemen, I've always listened and I am still learning. I live and work downtown. I use the waterfront. I'm dealing with issues around mental illness and around substance abuse from living downtown and running a business downtown. I am hearing the community loud and clear once again. They are not happy with how the last 4 years have been going, and so I decided to once again step up and do my best to serve this community by having a mayoral race that we all deserve. Folks, I am a doer, I'm a leader, and I have a history and career of always doing exactly what I say, and a long trail of success because I've worked harder than the rest to accomplish what everyone said couldn't be done. I understand that to change culture and meaningful purpose on any issue will take time and effort, and I'm ready to get to work and continue serving this community. Cobourg, it's up to you to vote Cleveland for Cobourg and tell everyone it's time for a change.
Lucas Cleveland, thank you very much for that opening statement. Now we hand it over to Sitting Mayor John Henderson for your opening statement.
And thank you, Mark. I'm delighted to be here for those viewers who are listening at home. Currently, I hope you've had the opportunity for our paths to cross, to have a conversation, to solve a problem, and to move forward. I hope we've been able to have that delightful conversation as mayor. However, I also relied on my past experiences, the first 4 years being Planning, Development, and Heritage Coordinator, assisting the growth that you can certainly notice within the town of Cobourg. That was followed by the role of Deputy Mayor, dealing with finance, budget, and audits. I'm pleased of our track record, not only as mayor in the last 4 years, but the 12 years included, the 4 years as mayor. I can also tell you that through COVID that no one was expecting. I'm proud of the team's performance, a cohesive team, not only in-house, but working with nonprofit and profit agencies, especially our health units, Northumberland Hills Hospital, and nonprofits, because we had one of the best COVID records throughout COVID. With that being said, you noticed, and I hope you noticed, we did not stop any service delivery. Yes, we had to modify it, but we never stopped any service delivery to the town. I'm pleased with our efforts as it aligned with the strategic plan of council. We accomplished much, but not all, because obviously of COVID. And at this point, I am delighted with our record. I'm delighted with the economic growth that we've seen both in business, industry. I'm delighted with the housing projects that are coming forward in an organized, principled manner under good planning principles. And again, I'm delighted with the role that we play at the county dealing with what was mentioned earlier, both mental health, well-being, and physical well-being. And that certainly is a focus we still must continue on. In ending, we're still dealing, as everyone knows, with affordable and attainable housing. And that will continue to be a focus as we move through the new term of council. I'm delighted with the collaborative efforts, not only with council, staff, the community, and I very much expect that to continue in a very cohesive, planned manner. I'm looking forward to your support as mayor as I move forward. Thank you.
Mayor Henderson, thank you very much. Lucas, thank you as well for your opening statement. At this point, we're going to move into our question period, as we call it. And because of the order of the numbers drawn, we're going to start with you, John, for this first question, and then we'll move to Lucas and have an opportunity for retort. Question would be, what is your vision over the next 4 years? That meaning, looking back at the end of those next 4 years with you as mayor, what would it be in your heart that you would look back on to be most proud of, that both citizens, taxpayers, residents of the town of Cobourg and yourself could be very proud of?
Well, first of all, I say to everyone, I don't want to lose focus of what happened during COVID. I don't think others realize how many meetings and group meetings we had and cohesive meetings. I know collectively we had close to 300 meetings through the various groups to keep us on track in emergency health and emergency situations to ensure we were dealing effectively as we move forward. With that being said, I'm very proud of the development record that's come into Cobourg. I believe it's quite noticeable, whether you're at the East End with New Amherst, or the West End with New Amherst, or the East Village in the East End, or the new arrival of Tribute Homes in the North, or most recently, as this past Monday night, we have Sunnydale Village Inc., who's coming into the East End. I'm also proud of our record in economic development. We solidified all the major stakeholders in Northern Industrial Park. We're welcoming 4 brand new business sites that will be built in Lucas Point Business Park. And through that, I believe we added 20 change of businesses and some variation in the DBIA. And through that, we kept the chamber humming throughout the 4 years. So collectively, I'm very proud of our record, knowing the circumstances that we were dealt as any community in Ontario.
Thank you, John, for that. Lucas, over to you again to repeat the question. Waving a magic wand, it's 4 years later, you've been sitting in the seat of mayor of town of Cobourg. What would you look back to be most proud of at that point that you could hold up?
Perfect, I appreciate the question. I want to be very clear. As someone who's always lived in the business community, having very clear, specific, and achievable goals are always really important to me. What my 3 really important factors are the 3 things that I want to commit to over the next 4 years that will make me feel successful and that I will be proud of the record is really simple. It's a 3-point plan. 1, it's to clean up the downtown core. What does cleaning up mean? It means physically cleaning it up. It means dealing with the mental health issues. It means dealing with the homelessness issues. It means dealing with the lagging businesses. So focusing the energy on creating a better downtown experience. That should be the jewel of our community. And it is in deterioration. And so for me, one of the key areas I need to focus on is revitalizing the downtown core and cleaning it up. 2, I want to make sure we get more shovels in the ground. Part of cleaning up the downtown core and part of solving a variety of issues in this community is to start moving faster when it comes to development, to getting more people at the table, and to getting shovels in the ground and housing built. Third, it's to rein in the public spending. I want to start talking about stabilizing taxes, maybe even putting a freeze on taxes until we're able to better understand as a community where our money is going, and is that where our money should be going. I think those are the three things that at the end of my term, if I've been a successful leader, that I know I can be, that this community will feel safer walking around downtown. They'll feel that they have a place to live in this community that's affordable, and they will feel confidence that the money they are spending in taxes is going to the right place.
Thank you, Lucas. Now that each of you have shared about your thoughts and plans over the next 4 years, what you'd like to look back on and be most proud of, an opportunity for an open conversation here between the two candidates to be able to exchange. John, we'll start with you.
Yeah, if I may, I appreciate Lucas's comments, but at the same time, let's look what's happened downtown, where we have a new build coming in on Albert and 3rd. We know the lot next door to the bus shelter is sold. Those plans are coming forward to planning. We know the lot in 2nd Street is now sold as well. And through that, as I mentioned, we've welcomed 19 new businesses into our downtown core since Christmas of this past year. So for me, that is promising. It's certainly a positive outcome. And at the same time, I am proud because what we decide to do in red tape under Bill 108, the provincial government allowed municipalities to cut red tape by providing delegation to authority, especially within the planning department. This past council, in fact, just passed that to give delegation of authority to our planning department with the effort of being more efficient and effective, to Lucas's point, getting shovels in the ground faster and quicker.
I'm gonna counter that because it's great to have lots of meetings, as you've explained, and to talk a lot about it, but from boots on the ground, from being part of the community, from living in the downtown core and running a business in the downtown core, I don't agree that the feeling is that we're making progress. I would say that the feeling amongst the community as a whole is that we're getting worse. One of the main reasons I stepped in and decided to run for mayor is because I don't like the way things are going. And I think to say things that are, yes, great, we've got new businesses, that doesn't help the fact of the homeless problem that we have in the downtown core and affordable housing. That doesn't help with the addictions and the mental health issues. Meetings and promises and conversations about what we have done don't start solving the problems that need to be fixed. And I think when we start speaking of being proud of what we've accomplished, it really negates the issues that a lot of people in the downtown core are facing, because we want to hear what solutions are. And what some of those solutions are boots on the ground from the police. What some of those solutions are is increase in funding into homeless programs. What some of those solutions are is re-looking at where we spend money in our budget and deciding that maybe there are better places that we could be putting our money to affect the problems within the people in this community. I'm a little bit, I wouldn't say upset, I'm a little bit frustrated, John, that you think the progress we're making is good. Because the reality is if you talk to the majority of this community, they don't feel that. And so I ask a question. Do you actually believe that the downtown is safer after 4 years of you being mayor?
That's a really good question. I'd like to rebuttal that. If you look at our statistics, it is true through the Cobourg Police Services plan, annual plan that we deal, the safety factor has come down, but I want to stress it's still in the mid-70s. It's come down from the 80 and 90 point from 4 years ago. There is no doubt we have a homelessness issue, an affordable issue, but I also like to remind Lucas that we're not the caretakers, we're a partner within this, but the money, the funding, does not come to the town of Cobourg. I want to make this clear. The majority of the funding comes from the province, goes to Northumberland County under the service manager, under community and social services. Just recently, we spent up to $3 million trying to address the issues. Again, could we spend more? Should we spend more? Absolutely, but that's a responsibility that will have to be held at the upper tier to address, and I agree that the one thing we'll perhaps need to move towards in the term at County Council is a full wraparound service.
Okay, Thank you, John, for
Can
that. 15 seconds, Lucas?
Yeah, of course. I think these answers where we keep giving reasons why we can't get things done is one of the reasons why we're not getting anything done. We need to have people in places of positions of power who have a can-do attitude and who have an experience of doing things and always trying to achieve the unachievable.
Thank you. Quite a fiery exchange off the top. Very much appreciate both your openness and candor and respect for the other candidates. Beautifully done. We're going to move into quite a segued topic here, which is the Community Improvement Plan. So how timely to talk about the CIP. I'm curious, and we'll start with you this time, Lucas. Are you for or against the CIP? And can you please explain why? Would you increase or decrease the amount of money dedicated to this program?
Perfect. So I'm 100% in favor of the CIP, and I am in favor of increasing the amount of money towards the CIP. I'll go on the record of that. Ladies and gentlemen, the CIP is a great plan. And like all good plans, they are as good as they are until you run into your first obstacle. Because as soon as a plan is laid and you run into that first obstacle, the plan goes out the window and a new plan has to become in. One of the things we need to start addressing is electing leaders who are more comfortable dealing with the unknown, who are ready to, again, approach situations as if they can be fixed and as if they are achievable. The CIP is a great, great guideline. It is a great program that we can start using to actually create the focus where we're going. What it requires is people at the table who are deal makers. What it requires, like any big change or any big program, you need people at the table who are focused on getting the deal done. That requires people who know how to execute big business transactions, who understand that sometimes it's taking a back seat of leadership to allow other people's interests to drive the conversation. I will state unequivocally, I am for the CIP and I am for funding it. However, that is not enough in and of itself. What we need to do is elect leaders who know how to execute huge change within massive organizations.
Lucas, thank you. Mayor Henderson, your thoughts on the Community Improvement Plan?
Well, obviously you can see I'm a strong proponent. We're the council that created the Community Improvement Plan for the right reasons. We started initially with the downtown core. But because of affordable housing, the need within this area, we flipped the focus and the criteria. Just recently, this council awarded, I believe, $274,000 towards grants and loans to assist with those endeavors. We also gave Balder Corporation on the University Avenue build $100,000 in loan as part of that process. And the whole idea was to create more housing. And I can also tell this council also approved coach houses, secondary suites. You can also build within your unit to a certain square footage. So what it will enable to do, it's cost effective, it's the best way to create housing. And if anything, I would like with the new council to add more funds to that area because it's been proven it's the quickest, most efficient way to get people with a roof over their head.
And Lucas, to you, 15 seconds to wrap up.
Oh, we're not open. Yeah, so basically I'd like to ask John, if the CIP program is such a good program, if both of us can agree that it's a good idea and that it should be, and that John has been the head of the organization that understands it, why is it we've made such little progress in that? Why is it we can't seem to actually get the entire community on board? Why is it we are behind in all of the timelines and all of the goals of the CIP program?
Well, you might blame timelines, but you have to remember we work with what we have. We had a planning department that's been inundated. For example, in the past 4 years, perhaps 12 to 14 applications. This year alone, in just the last 6 months, there have been 38 applications with a staff of 4. The good news, we went out under the organizational plan and have hired just recently a planner. We just recently, this past week, hired a manager of planning. And we hired a manager of service delivery. Again, we did not have these people on staff previous, and that's to account for our growth. So it's one thing to blame timelines, but again, I'm not picking on COVID, but COVID really delayed a lot of aspects. I think planning and development and staff have done an amazing job under the CEO and the directors we have to move us where we are today.
Thank you, John. Let's follow the puck, as they say. Lucas, back to you.
And all I was going to say on that is I think this is a clear indication of the differences that the Cobourg gets to choose now when deciding between John and myself and Mayor. When I've lived in the business community and been responsible for $100 million projects and specific timelines, at no point was there ever a reason that was good enough that was going to excuse my performance. The job is to get it done. And I relate to my market. And if a customer came into my business and had a negative experience with one of my employees, as a good business owner, you have to understand that all of it is your fault. That when you're at the head of the table, and when you're at the head of the council, and when you're at the head of the business, it's your job to make sure it gets done. And no one really cares about why it's not getting done. And as leader, I understand that. As someone who's worked in the business world and who's had to have deadlines, who's responsible for making payroll every 2 weeks and has been that way for the last 15 years, I understand that sometimes you just have to dig down deep and figure out a way to get it done, not excuse why you're not.
Okay, and John, over to you.
If I may, there's one critical difference that I'm sometimes confused by Luke's statement, because he talks about leading and operational. But under the Municipal Act, let's be very clear. The CAO is Director of Operations. She works with her managers, directors, and the teams underneath her. That's an employee in 200 plus range. You might say, well, who does council have to work with? Who is council lead with? Who does council cooperate with in the team performance? It's the Chief Administration Officer. So council is responsible for governance, policy, and oversight. But if you're talking about day-to-day operations, let's be clear, the Municipal Act is very clear. A mayor or members of council are not entitled to take on operational issues.
Thank you very much. And just for time, we're going to move on to our next question here. We're going to move into a very sensitive topic, which most taxpayers are concerned about, which is, of course, the term of taxes. I'd love to know from each of you the concept of the track record of the trajectory has been generally 1 to 3% annually for taxes here in the town of Cobourg. Curious your thoughts on the next 4 years, the approach and elements of your platform that will address that. John, we'll start with you.
Yes, there's no doubt with what's happened recently to our world, both in living accommodations, the cost escalation, the price escalation at banks, the cost of housing going from a 274.4 average range now to the high 700,000s. There's no doubt that we're going to have to take a different look, especially on major capital projects as we move forward. We're going to have to find a better balance within that range moving forward, because we understand whether you're town of Cobourg or Northumberland County, at the end of the day, we still only have one taxpayer.
Thank you very much. Lucas, over to you.
Perfect. Just addressing something from the last point, I want to just mention that being a leader doesn't require a title. And you don't always have to have the title to show leadership. Now, in terms of the tax plan, again, I've been in the position before. I've never been the mayor. And so for me to start making statements outside of my element is not something I'm very comfortable to do. What I can do is communicate what I'm hearing from the community, because as a mayor, my job is to represent the interests of that community. And what I'm hearing from the community is that they are not confident in the way we spend their tax dollars. What I'm hearing from the community is they want to see other sources of revenue be generated within the town so that we can ease the burden of taxes onto the taxpayers. What I would look to achieve within my first 90 to 100 days on council is to work with council to institute a tax freeze for at least 1 to 2 years, while I am able to work with council and understand where the money is going, so that I can honestly speak to the people of Cobourg and go, hey guys, I've just done 2 years of work, here's what I've found. And this is why we either need to continue to raise our taxes, lower, or move forward from that point. But I think before anything happens, before we talk about any raises, before we talk about any future taxation, what we need to do is make sure that the taxes we're already collecting are going to where we actually need them to go, and that they're being used effectively and efficiently to serve this great community of ours.
Great, thank you, Lucas. John, your chance to retort.
Yeah, Mark, I have to say that if you looked at the KPMG, the organizational review or the service delivery review, they indicated a large percentage of our overall budget is already allocated. It's allocated to such things as agreements, collective agreements with different associations, nonprofits, third-party organizations, previous capital. But I do agree that through this, we need to look at other sources. And that's when partnerships come in. That's when I look to the federal provincial government. They've been wonderful to Cobourg these past 4 years. I believe it's somewhere between $7 and $10 million of grants or loans to the town of Cobourg. In fact, just this past week, we submitted 3 multiple grants under the Federal Natural Infrastructure Fund that we're willing to hear from. Again, I agree we have to look at other ways, other sources. This council also agreed to look at the comprehensive user fees. We brought in development charges. We're looking at water rates. So again, we are looking at all, but to say we can have a freeze, I think is really impossible, knowing what's coming before council, what is already before the new council coming forward.
Thank you, John. Chance to reply.
Yeah, I think we need to also focus on how we can generate money for this community, because that's a really important factor moving forward. Ladies and gentlemen, whether you're in business, in government, or trying to run a charity, it does not matter. It is impossible to raise capital without attention. It is impossible to raise any awareness on anything unless you're not garnering the attention of the county, the provincial, and the federal government. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a natural salesman. I am a natural showman. I am ready to step up and represent this community and march down to Queen's Park and to march down to Ottawa with my MP and my MPP, who I have relationships with, to garner the attention for this community that we need to. We need a councillor, we need a mayor and a council who are doing their best for Cobourg, and that means also when we sit at the county table. I know John likes to talk about when he's at the county table, he puts on his county hat. But I think the people of Cobourg are electing someone to represent their interests at the county level. It's a major disagreement, and I think if we start approaching the corporation of the town of Cobourg like the corporation it is structured to be, then maybe we can start finding additional sources of revenue when we elect people who come from a business world who are used to finding those additional sources of revenue.
Lucas, thank you. We're going to move on to our next topic, gentlemen. This has been great so far. I appreciate all your openness. We want to talk about people experiencing homelessness, which we know is a clear and present situation here in the town of Cobourg. I myself, being a resident, am seeing a higher increase of these situations. We want to support these people. We want to find solutions. That's a natural human instinct, I believe. Right. We're going to start with you this time, Lucas. In terms of the situation around those that are experiencing homelessness, what are your thoughts? Is it a municipal issue, a provincial issue? What's in your platform?
It's a human issue, ladies and gentlemen. I'm someone who is dealing with a housing crisis. In the last 6 years in Cobourg, my family has had to move 4 times to stay ahead of the rental increases in this community. The housing crisis is affecting seniors who have lived in a home for 30 years and are now being priced out of their rentals. The housing crisis is the single biggest issue, I would say, affecting our community. It's why I speak to it, it's why I talk about it. Everyone keeps asking, what are the solutions? What are the solutions? How do we build more homes? Well, again, I've never been a mayor, and I'm just learning about the complexities of this problem. But I know there are a great group of people who've been trying their darndest to work together towards a solution. And everyone says it can't be done. Maybe we start putting people into positions of authority who actually are deal makers, who understand that things have to get done, and saying they can't be isn't an option. How about we have a mayor who's willing to take a back seat and do the hard legwork of communicating with the entire community at their level on Facebook, on Instagram, on the places that the public are, to get them engaged and aware that this isn't a problem with 80 individuals in the downtown core, that this is a problem that's going to impact all of us, and that if we don't get shovels in the ground building homes now that people can afford, and I'm talking about people that are making good money can afford, like myself, my family, my employees, then we're going to be in a lot of trouble because the community of Cobourg will not grow the way we want it to.
Thank you, Lucas. John, over to you.
I'm the first to admit, Mark, homelessness has been a prevalent issue. It's a prevalent issue in Cobourg and other municipalities and throughout Ontario. But again, I want to go back to Northumberland County because that's the service manager, that's the funding. You might say, well, what have they done at the county? Well, they created a housing and homelessness plan that they're working towards and a strategic plan for 10 years. Through that, they also created a homelessness coordinated response team. That's made up of 12 to 22 non-governmental agencies that meet bi-weekly on those who are homeless and what programs they can put forward, both for care, housing, food, mental support, physical support. And of course, all of this lines very much so with the county, because the county was the leader also in the community program for again, for the community leadership program under well-being. When that being said, and please remember the money, it's not a little bit of money, it's a huge amount. We're into the millions. And with that, it's also led to some increased housing with the redevelopment of, again, Elgin Street redevelopment from 18 to 40 units. It's resulted in us buying 473 Ontario Street for a future three-way agreement for a future 61-unit build. And on top of that, please remember the county is responsible for overseeing 400 affordable and attainable units, which are also subsidized.
Thank you very much, John. A chance to retort.
Yeah, of course. John, again, it seems that there's more great words, there's more encouragement of the things that are being done. But again, it seems completely disconnected from the reality of the Cobourg residents. It's wonderful that the county has all these homes, but what about Cobourg? It's wonderful that the county is doing these things, but what are we doing? And to say it's not the job of the town is to abdicate the responsibility of citizens of our community. I, as an individual, am feeding those people. Churches in this community are taking care of those people. Rotarians in this community are working towards solutions. What we need is a leader who's willing to actually do the work of getting the right people at the table and then knows how to make complex negotiations happen. What the town of Cobourg doesn't need is more reasons why we're doing a good job. What they want to hear is a plan. Like the plans that were instituted in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s in Cobourg successfully. Plans that did build massive, massive affordable housing units that aren't even being attempted anymore because when the questions are being asked, the answer is that's not a town decision. Well, these people live in our town. Our tax dollars go to this town. Why isn't the town doing something more about it?
Simply, as I indicated before, the major funding, whether you like it or not, does go to the county. Mm-hmm. We have created collaborative programs, as I mentioned, the 12 to 22 nonprofit agencies we work with, which are a large part of Cobourg. On top of that, we work with the Cobourg Police Service that created a HARP unit through, I must say, recent funding just under $1 million from the provincial government. We have an MHARP program with a police officer with social worker through the evenings and times. We work through Transition House to the maximum able to max out those resources. Is it enough? No, it's not. I'm the first to admit it is not enough. I mentioned earlier we need to work eventually to a 24/7 wraparound service. Will that require more services, more dollars? Correct. But again, let's be honest here. The operational issues are done by the managers, the COs, the directors who have the skills, the experience, and the background. These are not led, whether in the town of Cobourg or the county, by the mayor or council. We have a far different role. We can be a great partner, we can be a great collaborator, we can be a leader in suggesting movement, but we need that full team approach.
Thank you. One more round of this.
Yeah, and of course, John, I completely agree. All of what you're talking about hinges on a leader running those negotiations, on a vested leader who is actually making all of the disaffected and varied parties understand the compromise that's needed. I agree completely that that is what needs to happen. And John, to your point, you're right, we do need more funds. So why aren't you out there creating more of a commotion to generate the attention to get those needed funds? Why is there not the accountability coming back to the council in Cobourg about what's happening at the county? Why aren't we creating more of a commotion around this as the position you've had for 4 years, which gave you the soapbox with which to initiate that sort of commotion?
I must say, but please remember, when I mentioned something like moving from 17 units at Elgin to attainable to the 40, that's between a 12 and $17 million build. When we purchase and doing the build in the future for 473, again, Ontario Street, that will be a multi-million-dollar build. We worked with Balder Corporation that's building now for 71 units, of which 15 are attainable within the town of Cobourg. So when you add up these builds, they might seem simple or so few far between, but when you add them all together and what's also happening in the county, we just opened up a transitional housing and Trent Hills for 5 bedrooms. That was just under $1 million build. So you might say, well, you're not doing enough, but you have to remember within one term of council, moving to the next term of council, we're approaching $25 to $30 million for Cobourg.
Understood, John. Thank you for that. A great debate back and forth. Appreciate you both standing in your belief system and sharing it so openly with our viewers. We want to move on to another topic here because this is another basic, which is jobs, economic development. We know we have an aging population, shall we say, in the Northumberland County in general. Municipality of Port Hope and the town of Cobourg share that. Younger people coming up and moving on to university and college. What are your thoughts, gentlemen, about attracting those young people back once they've had their education, and also business development here so that more jobs become open? John, we'll start with you.
Well, first of all, I mentioned earlier, I'm pleased with our track record recently and certainly consolidating the major players, the major partners we've had for a number of years in Northern. They're going to be here for 5 to 10-year agreements. They are looking for more employees, skill-based, and I'll get there in a moment. We also have Lucas Point bringing in 4 new companies with employment, anywhere from 10 per employee up to its maximum of 40, with Canada Davy and, of course, Brock Street Brewery. We recently negotiated an extension of Kerr Street with a proponent. Quindle Hills was on council's agenda Monday night. They're going to propose opening up, which we've approved in conceptual, 6 manufacturing light sites to be produced in Cobourg. Recently, Benico arrived from Mississauga. They purchased the entire craft plant. Currently, they're looking for 50 employees. We realized the greatest concern is movement of people and services and goods. So that's why we're working on the transit system, the hop-in system, and of course, as you know, recently, if people wish to choose VIA, we just had a major VIA day of action because we want that 7 a.m. train back, right? We need to move people, we need to move skills, and most recently had a conversation with the board from Fleming College. They opened a satellite office here, of course, on William Street, and we're trying to make plans, what skills and abilities can we bring for training to enhance.
Wonderful, John. Lucas, over to you.
Perfect. I think let's talk about jobs. It's something I know inside and out. It's something I spent my whole life creating, running, operating. As someone who's created 30 plus jobs at the current organization in town, I lose an employee about every 2 months. And the reason I'm losing that employee is because unfortunately, we haven't been able to build enough homes in this community to actually have the affordable housing for staff members. There's a reason why we're short in paramedics in this community. There's a reason why we can't get enough nurses. There's a reason why several factories who are paying over $30 an hour are unable to attract people to the downtown and to work these jobs. We have unlimited positions open within this community and we cannot fill that. And we keep doing the same thing and asking, well, why is it not working? Ladies and gentlemen, we need places for these people to live. We need homes for nurses that make $40,000 to $50,000. We need homes for chefs who you want to work in the restaurants. The dire situation around our young paramedics in this community is redline. They cannot find a home to stay here, and our staff that is currently living here are years past retirement. This is a problem because we haven't been effective in the last 4, 8, and 12 years to address the problems that were coming. We didn't have visionary leadership planning for the growth of this community. We had bureaucrats and we had other people who are part of the institution, not visionaries, running from a place of what do we have to fix right now versus what's coming down the future. I know how to create jobs. I've been doing it my whole life. The jobs aren't the problem, folks. It's everything around it that needs to be worked on.
Thank you, Lucas. Point back
If I may, I know we talk about vision for the future, but I think Cobourg's done a great job in looking at the vision for the future and accommodating the growth that we're able to have. Currently, we just finished a 20-year master plan for the future of drinking water. We're one of the top 10 areas of services for water and hydro in the province of Ontario. We have the 6th lowest rates in the province of Ontario for utility companies. And recently we just got a $2.3 million grant to help us with the new water tower that will service not only the east but the north quadrant. And currently we've asked for an environmental assessment on our 2 water pollution control plants. that doesn't come without having vision and looking towards the future to build these accommodations.
Great, thank you. Last one, back to Lucas.
I'll take the point from John. Vision, fair, sure. The town has done things that needed to do. I won't negate that, and I'm not here to criticize. I am here to talk about the reality on the ground. And again, I live downtown. I work downtown. I have employees and I have an ear to the ground. I'm on Facebook and Instagram listening to what's being said, and the community is not happy. They're not happy because they don't have the restaurants downtown. They don't have the services downtown. They don't have a feeling of community in the downtown core because of the decisions that have been made. There are so many very simple and basic things that could be done to encourage small businesses in the community in both Web 2.0 or even in Web 3.0 businesses. The technology sector is where we need to start focusing our time and our energy in this community, yet we have an economic development committee that is still determined to turn us into a manufacturing center. We will never become a manufacturing center, and any energy, time, or space dedicated to that is not going to prepare us for the next 20 to 30 years in this community. Let's get our priorities straight. Let's actually talk to the people who are in their 30s, 40s, who are actually at the peak of their career and what they understand is coming. Because unfortunately, retired people who have not been in the business community for years aren't necessarily the best people to be predicting what's coming down in the future.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for both. John, one point
And
back
if
to
I
you.
want to say to that too, under the organizational plan, I am delighted, have not met our new economic development manager, but they're duly arriving this week. I look forward to working with this individual, bring skills and matrix of what could be done, whether it's through Venture 13 and the wonderful achievements we've done out of Venture 13. I'm looking forward to that innovative culture that we have adopted at Venture 13, and I can say in working with CFDC, which is Community Futures Development Corporation, people may not know this, but of all the corporations from here to the Quebec border, we're in first place in terms of what's been done in the town of Cobourg.
And thank you. Last point back to
Last point, I think John just eloquently pointed out a very big difference between the way John looks at the job of the mayor and the way I look at the job of mayor. I too am looking forward to the new economic staff. I too am looking forward to the growth we are experiencing within the town of Cobourg. But I see my job as mayor is not necessarily to work with these people. My job as the town of mayor is to be responsible to the people that elected me, to hear what they want, and then to communicate to the CAO, whose job it is then to communicate to their staff what the taxpayers are looking to see. It's not my job to work with the staff. That's the staff's job. My job as mayor is to be a leader, to lead council, and to be responsible to the taxpayers first and foremost.
Thank you both. Thank you both. An interesting topic here, quite delicate, about openness and transparency at council. Would love to get a perspective both from Mayor Henderson and from Lucas about how things have gone so far and any particular changes you would like to see coming in the next 4 years. John, we'll start with you.
I'm proud of our track record. When I first started, there was very little IT. We weren't open to the public as much as perhaps we should have been, could have been. To that point, we developed a hybrid policy for staff and for council. So at this point, you could be pretty much anywhere in the world. All our meetings are open. All our associate meetings can be seen as well at any point in time. We're working on any little glitch we may have from an IT point of view. But I'm really proud of our track record and how we've come to the forefront and are open, whether that's through the clerk, directly through any member of council, directly through my office, either by walking in, making an appointment, or even calling for a home visit. And I can tell you that's happened consistently over the 4 years. So where we are is terrific, and please remember we're a mid-sized municipality, but I'm just delighted where we are in the accountability and transparency piece with the public.
And we'll come back to you in a moment, John, but Lucas, your choice.
Of course. In terms of accountability and transparency, there's a reason why I put it on my card as one of the 3 things that I need to focus on if I were to become mayor. Again, a very differing opinion on the state of affairs between John and I. I don't believe that the majority of the community here feels consulted enough. I don't believe the majority of the community understands the complexities of the problem that council is facing. I don't believe that the communication piece has been effectively managed. Part of being the mayor is being the showman and being the spokesperson for the town. I find it hard to have that attention when members of our council, including our mayor, aren't on the platforms that the people are at. We need our elected officials to be on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We need to be able to have access to them because those are the places that the constituencies are communicating. Yes, it's also good to get out there and meet them and have those email responses, but it's really important to ensure that the accountability and the presence is there. In terms of transparency, again, I have to disagree wholeheartedly with John. The transparency is not there. I can't access the town bylaws anymore on the website. Try getting a breakdown on the budget of where our spending goes. It is so controlled that I, as an invested and political minded person, often have difficulty navigating the way in which this town and our council communicate. So if I'm having a difficulty, I can't imagine what other people in this community are having. As the mayor, I'm going to make sure that is primary job number one of me, is to make sure I myself am accountable and transparent to the public.
Lucas, thank you. Back to you, John.
And thank you, Mark. And that's another reason why this council undertook in many years both a service delivery review and an organizational review. And from KPMG, we discovered we're missing very critical positions. I just mentioned that we just hired the service delivery manager, which we've never had in the history of Cobourg, and I'm first to say long overdue, so that when concerns are coming in, they're done and they're dealt with in an efficient and effective measure. There can be metrics and KPIs and what's working, what's not. We just recently hired a manager of bylaw for the reason of the coordination, which again, this town has never had. So when you look at the different positions that we have brought in, we reflipped again for the animal control. We moved away to crate because it wasn't efficient. We're now looking at doing a new monetary system in-house. So we have looked at ourselves. We know it's not perfect by any means, but through these organizational reviews, we are addressing the gaps and we're moving forward. But to move forward, we need those right people in place to bring skills and leadership to help us to move to the next level.
Great, John. Thank you. Back to you, Lucas.
John, how is it that we need staff for you to be more accessible to the public? How is it we need staff for you to have a Facebook page? Why is it we need staff for you to be more approachable by the average public person and accessible and available? I've heard great things about your ability to respond to emails, and I've personally been reached out to you by you. But there is a large swath of this community that feel ignored and left out. So what are your plans moving forward as an individual to make the community feel more accountable? I've got mine and I've put them out there, and I think the community deserves to know how you are going to step up and make sure you personally, as their representative at council, is accountable to what you are saying you're going to do.
Well, at this point, I must say how I've felt I've been accountable for the last 4 years. Any response in any manner that I receive, personally or otherwise, I make myself available one-to-one. I attend their functions. I go to their homes. I visit the locations. I've done that consistently throughout the 4 terms, as well as I think I've only missed 1 or 2 council meetings in the 4-year term, plus all the sub-meetings. So I've made myself available consistently through all hours, I must say, and on all weekends. I'm proud of the record I hold in terms of listening, responding, and getting back within an efficient amount of time. It may not always be the answer they're hoping for, but at least it's an honest answer based on circumstances.
Thank you, John. To balance out, one last point to Lucas.
And I want to make sure that my comments come across with the respect to John they deserve. In no way, shape, or form am I sitting here telling John he didn't do a good job. What I am doing is I'm asking him the hard questions that I feel the community wants answered. One of the reasons I stepped up to run is because we needed to have a race. We needed to make sure people who are going to serve this community as the leader, who we are turning to decide what this community can and should be, needs to have a platform and needs to get out there and actually communicate that. I think it was a misfortune to John 4 years ago when he was acclaimed into the position. I think we need to make sure we have robust discussions, we have debates like this, so that the constituents, so that the people of Cobourg are comfortable and understanding of the people they are choosing.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We have time for one more question before we move to closing statements. And here's what comes to mind to share. You've both been out there on the campaign trail. You've both been pressing the flesh, as they say. You've both been speaking to the public. You've been listening. You've been taking in information. I'm curious for each of you, and we'll start with you, Lucas, of your campaigning that's happened to date before election October 24th. What is the moment that struck your heart the most? What is the moment that really touched you, and what do you plan to do about it?
Okay, so that's a really easy one for me. When I threw my hat in the race, I understood that unseating an incumbent mayor in a town under 30,000 is the single hardest thing to do in Canadian politics. I understood that because when I approached the other 15 to 20 people that I thought should run, they all explained the exact same thing. So when I started, I knew what the uphill battle I was going to start. And I can tell you the moment that really affected, the moment that affected me the other day was driving through town with my son. When he saw the crazy amount of fuchsia signs all over this community, he turned to me and he said, "Dad, I'm proud of you for trying to change things." So for me, thank you. That was something that really will stick for me because that's why I wanted to run. You can't stand by and be unhappy with how things are going if you're not willing to step up and do your part.
Lucas, John, over to you, the moment that touched you.
For me, it's quite different. Knocking on homes is a personal choice I made with our team. My goal is to get to not all homes, obviously in the time, but most of the homes. And by doing so, if they have an opportunity, I'm noting their concerns. Obviously, things I'm already aware of, such as they're asking questions about the CDI West Fields, what's happening to the harbor, what's happening to the beach in general terms, what's happening to the parking situation in there. And the thing I have noticed that's irritated me beyond belief is the graffiti that has entered our town recently and appears to be growing. And again, we're addressing that as I speak as well. So by taking these back, I'm taking the information back directly each and every day. And I think that's important. I think it's important when I knock for them to use their voice.
I appreciate that, both gentlemen. At this point, we don't have time for debate on this point, but both well shared and certainly from the heart for our viewers. I appreciate that. We're going to move into our closing statement section. I'll remind you that each of you candidates have 3 minutes to share your piece, and then we will do a closing for the end of the show. So as we start at the top of the show with Lucas, Mayor Henderson, we start with you, your closing statement.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the public for the opportunity to serve over these last 12 years, and in particular the last 4 as mayor. I want to say I am proud of our record to date. It doesn't mean it's a perfect record. I'm just proud of the record to date based on council's strategic plan and where we're headed. I'm pleased with the efforts of this council working with the new CAO, Tracy Vaughn, many new directors and managers in a collaborative effort, and all the agencies, multiple agencies through the town, whether it be fire, EMS, the county, the hospital, the list goes on. I want to stress that our role as council is to be the governance body, the oversight body, and to move items forward. No doubt that is our mission collectively as a council. It's not just the mayor, it's the entire council. But Lucas keeps talking about operations consistently. I'm going to lead operations. My answer is you're not going to lead operations. That's why you have a CO, that's why you have managers, that's why you have collaborative teams. You're in with those teams, you're building the bridges, you're building the future and the vision for Cobourg. But if you want to lead operations, then my question to Lucas, are you applying for a CAO job somewhere? Because that's the job of a CAO or a manager or director. It's not the job of council. It has never been the job of council. And I have to say that's clearly delineated and noted in the Municipal Act. It's a very clear, defined line. So I do believe in collaboration. I believe in a love of Cobourg and a betterment of Cobourg. And I'm hoping by returning the next term of council, I can continue many of the things that council started, and again, welcome all the new initiatives that are before us, whether it be the rehabilitation of the harbor, the new CDIC West Fields, or what's happening, of course, with Brookside.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. I appreciate that closing statement. At this point, Lucas, protocol dictates no chance for retort specifically, but 3 minutes, your floor, your closing statement.
Of course. I think it's good to know about leadership because I'm not trying to lead and do all the nitty-gritty. I'm trying to lead a community here. I think it's good to reflect on what we've learned today. We've learned that because I have a completely different vision for what Cobourg can accomplish and what it can be, because I bring a varied set of skills, experience, perspective from the business world, because I have real world experience changing massive company cultures and huge organizations, and because I have a history of doing the impossible and always asking how, while Mr. Henderson, who has been a dutiful, lifelong administrator, and I could not be more different. And that means Cobourg's got a really big choice ahead of them. You see, John has faithfully served his community for 12 years, and from this debate and from what you can read in his pamphlets, it's clear that he thinks Cobourg's on the right path, that things are getting done, that he is the best leader because he understands policy and is good at listening to the staff. He seems to think we don't really need to adjust the way we are doing things. We just need to give it more time, and things will happen the way they're supposed to. You see, that's not my opinion. And I'm sure there are those in the community that feel similarly that I do. I do not share that things are okay, and that's why I ran to be mayor. It's not the opinion I've been hearing from the community with my feet on the ground, and I think it's why the town is now littered with bright fuchsia signs supporting someone without a day of council experience. Folks, I'm ready to serve this community if this community decides it's ready to embrace a change. I'm ready to put my knowledge, experience, business acumen, reputation, attitude, and hard work. Folks, I see the need for a change in the way we do things around here, and that starts from the top. This October, I ask you to vote for change. Vote Cleveland for Cobourg, and let's start making Cobourg the best place to live for all.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for sharing as you have. Quite a healthy, heated, and abundant debate, which is why we're here. This is part of the political process. We're grateful that you've shared. I know our audience is grateful as well. So again, thank you, John. Thank you, Lucas, for being here and participating with the mayoral debate. For everyone else, a bit of housekeeping. I want to remind you, please get out and vote. Of course, October 24th is the actual day, but you can start voting on October the 14th at 9 a.m., and it runs up until 8 p.m. on Election Day, October the 24th. Remember, the town of Cobourg will have 2 help centers set up. Those will be located at the Town Hall and Cobourg Public Library from the 14th of October to the 24th. In addition, please visit cobourgvotes.ca for more information and support there. If you need any assistance, you can also call 905-372-4301 or email cobourgvotes@cobourg.ca. You've been watching Your Vote, Your TV's extensive coverage of the 2022 municipal election. I'm Mark Johnston, your host, and we've been grateful you've joined us.